Hello everybody, good evening. It's Catherine from KISS, Keto It's Simple for Success, coming to you live in the KISS Facebook group. It's day 14 of our May challenge, and I'm here this evening to talk about fruit. Now, I'm sure you've been told throughout your life to increase the amounts of fruit that you're eating in your diet. And here I am in a healthy eating group where we're trying to lose weight, telling you that maybe eating fruit is not a good idea to achieve your health and your weight loss goals, which I know comes as a shock to lots of people. When I talk about the 28-day plan or how I coach people, fruit always comes up as one of these things that people just simply can't wrap their head around for a while. So I thought it would be a really good opportunity to talk a little bit about fruit, why we eat so much of it, why we love it so much, what it does to the body, and whether we can actually get what we think we're getting from fruit from far better sources that don't have some of the things that fruits have in them. So if you're catching up on the video, thank you so much for taking your time to watch. I really appreciate you following along with the May challenge. If you're watching this on YouTube, welcome to the channel. The channel talks about everything to do with the ketogenic lifestyle. I'm a keto coach by trade, that's what I do. So I'm here to provide motivation and education and perhaps an insight really into how you can make the lifestyle work for you and how you can achieve your goals with a ketogenic lifestyle. Okie dokie. So, like I said, we're live in the Facebook group. If you'd like to be able to come live with me in the Facebook group, then just join. All the links are below, and we would be more than happy to welcome you. It's a place for people who are brand new, people who are exploring their options, talking, thinking about keto, all the way up to people who've been ketogenic for quite a few years and just want to meet people who are on the same page as them and understand the journey. So whatever stage you are, please do come and you'll be more than welcome. Okay, so let's start then. The first thing I wanted to talk about is actually why humans and why animals in general love fruit. So if you can imagine that you're a tree that produces fruit and you want to be able to reproduce and sow your seeds across the world, you want to have little trees, then one of the things that nature has done and trees have evolved to do is to produce fruit which are really, really tempting to eat. And their seeds then pass through the digestive tract of the animal, or the seeds get carried along with that animal, and then using the digestive enzymes, they can help to actually get the seed to germinate. So when the seed hits the ground, it germinates and a new tree grows. So if you can imagine, if you're a tree, you want to develop fruit that is absolutely irresistible because you want all your fruit to be eaten. You want all the animals to want to come and get your fruit. So fruit is developed as a very tempting prospect. Hi, Cindy. A very tempting prospect for animals and humans alike. So when we're talking about why humans like fruit is designed to be incredibly tasty and almost irresistible. And we'll talk a little bit about why we overeat fruit, because that's different. But fruit are colourful, they're attractive, they look tempting, and they taste amazing. And this is because nature, that's how nature wants them to be. They want them to be really, really tasty, really attractive, so that you will go up to the tree, take off the fruit and pass the tree's seed and or stone or whatever's in that fruit on to the next generation. So yeah, they're designed to be. So why then does humans eat fruit? Well, humans have evolved to seek out energy sources in their environment. So fruit is definitely something that seasonally, and this is a word that I want you to take on board, seasonally fruit would be available in the human environment. They didn't have cold frames and glass houses and air shipping in fruit from around the world in the depths of winter. That was not the case. fruit was very seasonal in the human diet, and long periods of time would pass without fruit in the diet at all. So when fruit did come around, then humans would take this opportunity to eat the fruit. So fruit is something that humans have always eaten. However, it was used as a time of sort of gluttony and of fattening up. So if you imagine the summer months when the trees were fruiting, humans would eat the fruit. The carbohydrates would make them gain weight, would make them store body fat, and they would use this fat stores when they went into the difficult winter months where that fruit wasn't available. So fruit was always used as humans and by all animals as a way to fatten the body, so that they have body fat reserves for the rest of the year when that tree isn't fruiting, and they can be ketogenic. And if there was any times of hardship where food was very difficult to come by, then they would have these body stores as a reserve. So if you were an early human and you didn't have a fridge or a supermarket or food available, being good and fat during the summer months, getting the fattening fruit in was really, really important. It would give you an advantage over those animals and those people that didn't fatten up over those months. So not only is fruit designed to be irresistible, but humans are driven by evolution, by our evolutionary ancient brain, because the brain hasn't changed for thousands and thousands of years. We are driven not only to seek out carbohydrate sources, these sweet fruits and everything else, but we're actually driven to overeat and to become fat on these things. So things like fruit and carbohydrates in general, as we know as ketogenic eaters, are very difficult to eat in moderation. There's no such thing as one grape. I don't know if you've noticed. It's very, very difficult to moderate fruit, because fruit is designed to be very, very attractive and very tasty, and we're designed to take on as much fruit as we possibly can to get nice and fat and to build those reserves. So what is it triggering us then in the fruit? Because it's slightly different from other carbohydrates. Candy bars and all the sweet treats mimic what fruit does, and if you're ever wanting to make money off food, then just put some sugar in it and everyone will buy it. Top tip. However, what is it about fruit? Well, there's something very specific in fruit, and it's called fructose. It's a type of sugar, and it's the sugar found in fruit and other vegetable sources, which we'll talk about. So what's the deal with fructose? Well, it's pretty much the worst sugar there is for both getting fat and for being really, really addictive. Fruit sugar is something that we're almost evolved to be highly addicted to really, really enjoy, and our body very quickly and readily turns fructose into body fat, into triglycerides, which is stored as body fat. And it's the liver that turns this fructose into the triglycerides. The liver stores the triglycerides within its own organ, so within the liver. So this is where the fatty liver starts coming in with these excess carbohydrates, and then it stores it underneath the skin all over the body. But more importantly, fructose is very easily turned into what's called visceral fat. And visceral fat is the fat that you will find wrapped around every organ of the body. If someone's eating a high carbohydrate diet, lots of fruit, lots of high fructose corn syrup, which we'll come on to. These are the types of products that will produce this visceral fat. And if you're looking for a really good indicator that someone may have a heart attack, then high amounts of visceral fat are a really good indicator that that person is at high risk of cardiovascular disease. An easy way to test yourself is to measure your waist, because visceral fat is stored around the abdominal organs. If you have a waist measurement as a woman higher than 34 centimeters, then that puts you at greater risk of cardiovascular disease because of your visceral fat. And for men, anything over 38 inches puts you at an increased risk. So it's very easy to see how fruit is linked to obesity, how it's linked to cardiovascular disease as well. It's this fructose, it's the fruit sugar itself that is highly addictive, that causes overeating. We're sort of driven to overeat it, and to have, you know, to be gluttons and to binge and on fruit, because it's part of our evolutionary drive to stay alive. We want to be as fat as possible, unfortunately, and it's something that we need to be very aware of. And fruit are one of the things that help the body get really, really fat really, really fast and store this body fat all around the organs and all under the skin, as if there's going to be a winter. But I think everyone following this ketogenic lifestyle is finally giving themselves that long winter that we need to burn off this body fat. So for those people who aren't having time away from fruit and carbohydrates, you just keep storing the body fat and you get bigger and bigger. So fruit isn't the only place that we get fructose. Like I said, fructose is also found in grain as well, particularly in corn. And in the US, there's a big thing about high fructose corn syrup. It's a very, very cheap way to sweeten food. And it is by far the most fattening product that is going around at the moment. You'll find it in sugary drinks, in processed food, and basically anything that they've made really, really cheap and they have to cover with advertising slogans to sell it to you. So yeah, be very, very aware of fructose. It's highly addictive and it's uniquely fattening of the sugars. So just be really, really aware. So this is why when I'm coaching someone to lose weight, or I'm writing a 28-day meal plan that is purely designed to help people to achieve their weight loss goals, then fruit was always going to be an issue. And to begin with, I think when I trialed it, fruit was in that plan. I had strawberries, raspberries, blackberries, blueberries, basically the berries, which is slightly lower in carbohydrates than the other fruit. So I kept them in to I guess, see what would happen. And because the thought of giving up fruit for some people was just crazy. I mean, they were okay with the lard and the bacon and the butter. But when I said fruit's not a good idea, then whoa, you know, this is suddenly so far from what people have been told about healthy eating that it was a bit of a shock. So I think when I first started the trial, I did keep the berries in, not because I thought they should be there, but I think as a kind of halfway house for people, I'm not sure. But anyway, within 2 weeks of the trial, it was obvious that the people who were eating a lot of this fruit were really, really struggling, not just to lose weight, but to not be hungry and to not be craving and to not be overeating. Now, although it's you can't overeat fat and it's very difficult to overeat protein, it became very easy for people to overeat carbohydrates from their berries and of course all the things that they were eating with their berries. So the double cream and the yogurt and all this dairy and the nuts and the seeds. They had something which I refer to as carb creep, because suddenly all these things were coming into the diet alongside this fruit, and the amount of carbohydrate in the diet was increasing very, very rapidly until they weren't losing weight anymore, and they had all their cravings back and their hunger and everything else. So the first thing I did with those people who were eating a lot of fruit was to recommend, if they weren't going to give it up, then they would have to severely reduce the fruit. Hi Gail, good afternoon. It's evening here, but I know it's afternoon where you are. Yeah, so we're talking about fruit, Gail, and I'm sure you can watch the beginning at some point. Anyway, so we were talking about fructose, and when I had it in the trial, it was associated with people not being able to stick to a ketogenic lifestyle. It was associated with people having real difficulty losing weight. It was associated with sweetener use, overeating of nuts, overeating of seeds, overeating of dairy products. So people were eating fruit, and it was the fruit that was increasing all these other carbohydrates until they had carb creep up to a point where they weren't losing weight. So yeah, when you take the fruit out, a lot of the yogurt went, a lot of the nuts and the seeds and all these sort of like pretend cereals that people were making with the fruit, and all these sort of fake desserts and everything else kind of went out the window with them. And what I noticed was those people were no longer hungry, no longer craving, and were leaning heavily more on the ketogenic foods that we know are associated with weight loss. So they went more towards their meats and their animal fats and their green vegetables, and it all sort of started to sort itself out. So yeah, it was surprising really, because personally I was never a massive sweet fruit fan anyway. So for me, I've never had to purposefully avoid fruit because I don't tend to buy it anyway. But those people who were on a high fruit diet, and people coming from like the paleo community, or people who were eating healthy, were eating incredible amounts of fruit, probably 3, 4, even 5 servings of fruit a day. And of course, that's an awful lot of sugar. So yeah, they found it really difficult to moderate fruit. Tomatoes are indeed a fruit, yes, Gail. So you will notice that when I talk about tomatoes, I will always say that we need to moderate them, because they do have carbohydrates, and they are sweet, and they do have fructose. So tomatoes are one of those things that we use in moderation. They're nowhere near as bad as apples and oranges and bananas. However, we wouldn't, for example, do a tomato-based sauce for lunch and then have tomatoes all over our salad for dinner, because that's going to be too many carbohydrates, and that you'll get that carb creep from the tomatoes, especially when you've got onions and then garlic and then whatever else you're putting in that dish. So again, tomatoes is one of those things that I don't eat very much of. However, I probably have tomatoes once a week. Normally when I do my curry, I do like to put a couple of tomatoes to make the sauce of the curry, but I normally have them about once a week. It's not a big thing, tomatoes in my house. So yeah, so I hope that explains that. But yes, tomatoes are a fruit. Cucumber is also a fruit, but doesn't tend to have the type of impact that some of the others tend to have. Okay, there's something about berries that people associate with desserts and treats and everything else. So there's something in the brain that starts to go off when people are eating berries. And for whatever reason, I think I understand the science of it, but during the trial, it was a real stumbling block for people, so I did remove them. Okay, so if you do this 28-day plan, don't be shocked. There's no fruit in it. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk about is the difference between modern fruit and actual real wild fruit. I think what I'll do after this is I'll try and find some pictures to show you the difference between a wild strawberry and a modern day strawberry. So wild strawberries are probably about the size of my little fingernail, very small, red, lovely and sweet. They do taste great, but they are tiny in comparison to modern day strawberries, which we have bred to be bigger and higher in carbohydrates and sweeter and sweeter and sweeter. Same goes for oranges, same goes for apples, same goes for bananas. In fact, all modern day fruit, it has been bred over the thousands of years and generations to be bigger, sweeter, and to be generally more sellable. So if you can imagine, you want your fruits to be shiny and colourful and irresistible and sweet. So the amount of sugar and the amount of fructose in fruit has been bred to be higher and higher. So whereas modern humans would have found a couple of quite sour apples with probably not much sweetness in there at all, but they, it would have been a carbohydrate source for them. Nowadays, if you're eating an apple, you're potentially taking nearly up to 20 grams of sugar, which is, as we know, a whole day's worth of carbohydrate in just one apple. So, and what a waste, because that's an awful lot of green vegetables potentially. So, so the difference between wild fruit and modern day fruit is that wild fruit was not anywhere near as high in sugar and as sweet as modern day fruit. So thinking that enormous strawberry that you see in your local market, or that ginormous apple, bright shiny red apple, is natural, is not really the case. You're not looking at a natural fruit. You're looking at a man-made, genetically manipulated food, which was bred to be high in sugar, high in fructose, irresistible, and something that you would eat in excess because obviously they want to sell it. Yeah. Oh, lovely. We have blackberries. Blackberries grow really well in the UK, and yeah, wild berries are fantastic. If you can find wild berries, it's no coincidence really that our wild berries are the lowest in carbohydrates. And I know a lot of people, like I said, I don't have to worry about avoiding fruit because it's not something that I eat a lot of. But what I found when people were trying to become ketogenic and trying to hit their weight goals, this is where they started falling down a little bit, because they just couldn't get their head around making that last movement away from fruit while they were trying to achieve their goals. But I think my point is that when you see fruit in your supermarket, that is not natural fruit. That is genetically modified, higher in fructose fruit that has been specially bred for you to be addicted to it and to overeat it. So just to be very, very aware of fruit, that it looks beautiful and it tastes great. However, it's fattening, so you just need to be aware. Okay, so let's talk about different types of fruit then, because I know that a lot of people do eat some fruit on the ketogenic lifestyle. So things like your wild berries, like we've just mentioned, but the smaller and more tart the berry is, the better it's going to be. So just think towards your raspberries and your blackberries. As soon as you go past blueberries, we're talking about higher carb fruit. So it really is just those low carb berries. But even then, if you're finding that you're starting to eat berries every day, or you're unable to have just a couple, then that is the fructose driving you to eat that. And of course, when you have your berries, what you having the berries with? Are you adding yogurt, which is obviously got carbs in it? Are you adding fruit and nuts and these things which all have carbs in them? So potentially that is a sort of trigger, the berries, to all those carbohydrates coming into the diet. So yeah, they also tend to be involved in snacking, and we all know how I feel about snacking. So yeah, potentially then fruit could be the gateway into more carbohydrates and that eventual carbohydrate creep. Okay, so fruits which are really not a good idea. We're probably aware of them if we've been in the group a while, but things like your bananas and your apples and your oranges and your peaches and your mangoes and your papayas, all these fruits, watermelon, in fact, melon in general, basically all the fruit, apart from those very small amount of berries, are going to be way too high in carbohydrates, and more importantly, have fructose, which is uniquely fattening and addictive. So just be super, super aware that those are the fruits. If weight loss is your goal, they don't really help you in any way towards that goal. And in fact, they'll just make you hungry, they'll make you crave sweet stuff, and will stop you losing weight. So, and will definitely stop you being in ketosis. So bananas, about 25 grams of carbohydrates just on its own. So way over what we would normally eat. Okay. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on fruit. And I know it's quite a quick run through tonight, but I just wanted to explain to those who are new, or to those who are considering the ketogenic diet, but the one thing holding them back is fruit. And believe me, I know there's at least a dozen in the group who have talked to me openly about, I'd love to do keto, but fruit. So I hope that gives you a really good explanation as to fruit is designed in nature to be nature's irresistible treat. It makes you overeat. And fructose is what gives us fatty liver, visceral fat in the abdomen. It's associated with all sorts of nasties like diabetes, and just abdominal fat, really. fruit is for fattening up during the summer. So if all you ever do is just eat fruit in the summer, put on a couple of pounds and then burn it off all summer or winter, sorry, then that's fine. However, we know that in this group we could do with a slightly longer winter and slightly fewer summers. So yeah, so that's my thing on fruit. Not many people on the live tonight, which is a shame. But that's just how it is, I think. I think everyone's just busy doing their thing tonight, and probably still in work for a lot of people. So sorry I can't come any later, because I'm in the middle of my work week as well. So I have to be really careful not to be really, really late, because otherwise I have to go in and put matchsticks on my eyes. But yeah, it's been lovely speaking to you all, and I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you're on YouTube, then please subscribe, click the notifications bar, and come and join us in the Facebook group. And if you want to follow along with the May Challenge, the links to the KISS food plan, the ideas for the challenge, so the 2 to 3 meals, ditching snacks, and all the things that we're doing in May to really accelerate our weight loss and achieve our goals, are all in the links below. Okay, I'm going. Have a lovely evening, everybody. I'm going to be back tomorrow to talk about fat, good, bad, and ugly. Anyway, I'm off now. Bye.